Real espionage rarely involves gunfights or high-speed pursuits. True deep cover intelligence requires a person to step entirely out of the light, systematically dismantling their own identity until they disappear without a trace. In the early 1970s, the Research and Analysis Wing deployed Ravindra Kaushik, known as the Black Tiger. His intelligence allowed India to intercept and neutralize Pakistani military movements before they reached the border. Yet, despite securing the borders for over 1 billion people, his career ended in total silence. He died in a foreign prison cell in 2001, a nameless inmate completely unacknowledged by the government he saved. The abandonment of a high-value asset isn't a failure of the system, it is a mechanical necessity of statecraft. Building a deep cover operative requires the total erasure of the individual. Once that person ceases to legally exist, the state no longer carries a formal obligation to protect or retrieve them. Kaushik began his adult life far from the military apparatus. He was an ordinary theater student performing on stages across the Indian state of Rajasthan. His natural talent for adopting personas caught the attention of the Research and Analysis Wing. They recruited him for a permanent one-way deployment that required him to live a lie for the rest of his life. To prepare him, the state wiped his slate clean. He severed all ties with his family, formally abandoned his religion, and watched his handlers legally dismantle his existence within India. Then began the reprogramming. Over 2 years, he mastered the Urdu language, studied Islamic theology in precise detail, and internalized the subtle cultural cadences of daily life across the border. When the training concluded, Ravindra Kaushik was gone. The man who walked out of the facility was Nabi Ahmed Shakir. Intelligence agencies know that any fabricated cover story can eventually be cracked. To prevent this, Ra weaponized an actor by forcing his performance to become his permanent reality. In 1975, Shakir crossed into Pakistan and vanished into the dense civilian infrastructure of Karachi. To fortify his civilian background, he enrolled at Karachi University and completed a degree in law. He now had a legally verified, localized paper trail. That pristine background allowed him to enlist in the Pakistan Army. He passed every background check, cleared rigorous security interviews, and steadily climbed the ranks to become a commissioned officer. Sitting deep inside the military apparatus, he accessed highly classified briefings. He immediately began transmitting troop movements, logistical data, and tactical plans back to his handlers. This stream of internal military secrets flowed directly to defense officials in New Delhi, allowing India to neutralize offensive strategies before they even materialized. By integrating into the enemy's command structure, Kaushik provided the Indian government with a direct window into Pakistan's long-term military intentions. By 1983, Kaushik had lived as Nabi Ahmed Shakir for 8 years. But an intelligence network is only as secure as its most exposed member. Indian intelligence dispatched a separate operative to make contact with him. Pakistani forces intercepted this agent, subjected him to interrogation, and the operative surrendered Kaushik's true identity. Years of behavior conditioning and institutional trust dissolved in an afternoon because of an external security leak. He was abruptly arrested, stripped of his military rank, and pushed into a black site. A deep cover agent can execute their role perfectly, yet remain perpetually vulnerable to the systemic flaws of the agency managing them from across the border. A military court handed him a death sentence, which was eventually reduced to life imprisonment. For 16 years, Kaushik endured physical and psychological torture across multiple Pakistani prisons. The Indian government followed strict protocol. They denied any knowledge of his existence, entirely disavowing the man who had provided their most critical strategic intelligence. He managed to smuggle a few letters to his family back in Rajasthan. In one of them, he outlined the reality of his abandonment, writing, "If I were an American, I would be out in 3 days." There was no extraction, no diplomatic trade. In 2001, Ravindra Kaushik died of pulmonary tuberculosis in a jail cell, with no honors and no formal acknowledgement. State intelligence relies on a brutal transaction. The state demands absolute sacrifice, but promises zero salvation in return. The perfect spy is ultimately erased, first by their enemies, and finally by their own people.